Episode 35, Training Programs, That Work, Simulation, Mocks, and Evaluation Methods. Welcome back to Executive Protection Insights. I'm Liam. Today we're going to talk about training, but not training as it's often advertised, marketed, or showcased online. We're going to talk about training that actually works, because in executive protection, training is one of the most talked about subjects, and at the same time, one of the most misunderstood. Everyone agrees training is important. Everyone claims they train regularly. Everyone has certificates, patches, and photos. And yet, when things go wrong in the real world, we often see the same failures repeat themselves. So today, I want to slow this conversation down and look honestly at what makes training effective, what makes it fail, and why simulation, realistic mock scenarios, and proper evaluation are the difference between confidence and real readiness. Because executive protection work is rarely clean, rarely predictable, and almost never convenient. And training that doesn't reflect that reality creates false confidence. Why most training falls short. Let's start with an uncomfortable observation. A lot of training looks impressive, but doesn't translate. Clean environments, perfect lighting, clear instructions, predictable outcomes. And don't get me wrong, fundamentals matter. Repetition matters. Muscle memory matters. But the problem starts when training becomes too controlled. Real operations don't give you perfect conditions. They don't announce problems in advance. They don't pause while you think. If training never introduces friction, confusion, or pressure, it creates a dangerous gap between what people believe they can do and what they can actually do when stress hits. The goal of training is not to make people feel confident. The goal of training is to make people functional when things stop making sense. The difference between practice and preparation. This is an important distinction, and it's one that often gets overlooked. Practice is repetition in ideal conditions. Preparation is performance in imperfect ones. Practice teaches mechanics. Preparation teaches judgment. In executive protection, judgment is what saves lives. You don't fail because you forgot how to do something. You fail because you hesitated, misread a situation, or didn't adapt fast enough. Training programs that work understand this difference and design for it. Why simulation-based training works. Simulation works because it introduces reality, carefully, deliberately, and progressively. It introduces noise. It introduces distractions. It introduces time pressure. It introduces conflicting information. Suddenly, things aren't as clear. And that's the point. Simulation forces people to think, communicate, prioritize, and decide under conditions that resemble real operations. It reveals things you can't see in static drills. Hesitation, tunnel vision, breakdowns in communication, unclear leadership, or people waiting for instructions that never come. These are not failures of character. They are human reactions, and training exists to expose them before reality does. Mock scenarios, where training becomes real. Mock scenarios are where theory stops being comfortable. And here's something important. Mock scenarios don't need to be extreme to be effective. They need to be believable. A delayed principle, a sudden route change, a medical issue at the worst possible moment, a hostile individual who doesn't immediately act, a breakdown in communication between team members. The best mock scenarios don't rush to the incident. They unfold slowly. They test awareness, patience, decision-making, and communication long before anything dramatic happens. And often the most valuable lessons come from what didn't happen. Missed cues, assumptions that went unchallenged, or decisions that were delayed just a little too long. Stress is not the enemy, it's the teacher. One of the biggest mistakes in training design is trying to eliminate stress. Stress is not the problem. Unmanaged stress is. Training should expose teams to manageable stress so individuals learn how they personally respond. Some people speed up and talk more. Some slow down and become quiet. Some take control aggressively. Some hesitate. None of these reactions are wrong, but all of them matter. If people don't learn how they react under pressure in training, They will discover it for the first time during a real operation, and that's not where you want that lesson to happen. Team training versus individual skill. Executive protection is not an individual sport. No matter how skilled one person is, the mission succeeds or fails based on team performance. That means training must test how teams communicate, how leadership shifts when plans change, and how individuals support one another under pressure. Simulation often reveals something uncomfortable but valuable. Individuals may be highly capable, but poorly synchronized. Training that works focuses on how the team functions, not just how individuals perform. Evaluation, where learning actually happens. This is where many training programs fall apart. They train, but they don't evaluate properly. Evaluation is not about passing or failing. It's not about embarrassment, and it's not about punishment. Evaluation is about understanding why things happened the way they did. What information was missed? What assumptions were made? Where did communication break down? Who hesitated? And why? Honest, structured debriefs turn experience into learning. Without them, training becomes repetition without growth. Why certificates don't equal readiness. In executive protection, it's easy to collect certificates, but passing a course doesn't mean someone is ready for real-world operations. Readiness comes from repetition over time, increasing complexity, honest feedback, exposure to uncertainty. Training programs that work are iterative. They evolve as teams evolve. They don't aim for perfection, they aim for adaptability. Building training programs that scale. For organizations, the challenge isn't just running good training, it's doing it consistently. Effective programs use repeatable scenarios, clear evaluation criteria, documented lessons learned, adjustments based on observed gaps. Over time, patterns emerge. Training becomes targeted instead of generic. That's how organizations build capability, not just individuals. Common training mistakes in executive protection. Some mistakes show up again and again. Training that's too scripted, scenarios where everyone knows what's coming, no consequences for poor decisions, debriefs that avoid uncomfortable truths, training that never evolves. If training never surprises you, reality will. What good training actually feels like. Here's a useful reality check. Good training often feels uncomfortable. It feels mentally exhausting. It feels frustrating at times. It challenges assumptions. It exposes gaps. If training always feels easy, it's probably not doing its job. The goal isn't to feel good, it's to be ready. Key takeaways. So let's bring this together. Training that works reflects reality. Simulation exposes human behavior. Mock scenarios test judgment, not memorization. Evaluation turns experience into learning. Repetition builds resilience. Training is not an event, it's a system. Closing thoughts. In executive protection, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall back on what you've trained for. Training programs that work don't prepare teams for perfect scenarios. They prepare them for imperfect ones. And when teams train realistically, evaluate honestly, and adapt continuously, they make fewer mistakes when it matters most. Thanks for joining me on Executive Protection Insights. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay prepared, and remember, if training doesn't challenge you, reality will.